All right, guys. So this has become somewhat of a tradition. So ControlUp session. Who in the room hasn't ever seen this session before? Okay, so for the three of you, I'm going to go through what ControlUp is briefly. And it just happens that every time that we do E2EBC, there's a new ControlUp version out. So, and it just so happens that every time when people ask questions about new features for ControlUp, the next E2EBC, we have at least some of those features already in the project. So this time I'm going to go through some of the new features of ControlUp 7.2. I'm also going to cover briefly the new things we have in ControlUp Insights, which is really cool. And what we're going to do this time to enhance the networking part of this event, which is the major part of this event, we're going to basically distribute some incentives for questions. And this time, because people tend to sit next to the people that they came with, so this is not really networking, right? So if you come with your friends and you... Something, yeah, okay. So if you come with your friends and you only talk to them, that's not really networking, is it? So this time, what we want to do is, if you ask a good question, well, you will see what qualifies as a good question. If you ask a good question, you're going to get an incentive, and the person sitting in front of you and in the back is going to get an incentive too. And you're going to share the incentive. So this is the new rules for this time. Any questions so far? You didn't get it, did you? Yes?
Do you have something different than Jägermeister?
This is a great question, Marcus. So, so let's demonstrate. So Marcus gets an incentive for his great question, and the answer is coming to you. And also whoever's sitting in front of Marcus, and since you're sitting in the back row, so also the person 2 rows before Marcus is also getting an incentive. So this is how it works. At any point, if you have a question, just feel free. Okay, so we're ControlUp. We're based, you'll see in a second, we're based in California and in Israel. Matan and myself come from Jerusalem, which is a great place, and you're always welcome to visit us. And we're always happy. Part of the people and the experts in this room have already been and visited us and had a great time, so you can ask them. You guys are always invited. But we come here basically to show you the new stuff that we have. We're not going to go into any marketing slides. I have tons of those, if somebody is interested afterwards. But no marketing slides. Just live demos, just new features, and hopefully a little bit of advanced stuff for you guys, since this is an experts to experts virtualization conference. So this is apparently how you spell ControlUp in Dutch. Right? Okay, so ControlUp 7.2 is out, and let me just show you briefly through what we have. As always, I'll try to zoom in on the important parts. I realize that you guys are sitting far, so I'll try to zoom in on the parts that really matter. So, this is basically ControlUp. This is a real-time management and monitoring solution. It's about more than 7 years old now. It was created as a visibility solution. We needed a visibility solution to look at Citrix deployments, to look at terminal services deployments back in the day, and what we were missing was a tool that allowed us to see multiple servers and multiple user sessions and multiple application activity on multiple silos, and to gain as much visibility as we needed to solve problems, real problems at customer sites. We created this. So the idea at first was to sort of replicate Task Manager, right? So just to take Task Manager and give it multi-target capabilities, right? So just as like the Task Manager shows you who are the users and processes running on this one computer, ControlUp actually shows you who are the users and the processes running on your entire deployment. So just as a simple example, those are all my virtualization hosts, okay? So sort of scrolling through the different hosts we have here, you can already maybe spot something new. on here. So last time at E2EVC, people were asking how about Acropolis and Nutanix hypervisor. So we just introduced support for that in 7.2. Thank you. It's actually been picking up, so there's quite a few customers actually using this. And the great thing about ControlUp, like in the rest of the views, you can actually combine. So Acropolis, VMware, Hyper-V, and Zen. Not a very large environment here, of course, but still, everything's in the same console, and you can sort of see them side by side and compare and drill down and investigate issues, and everything works cross-platform for all those virtualization platforms, which is, I think, really nice for experts and for consultants and for people who want to dig into the more complex environments that are becoming more and more common these days. So Nutanix is one nice thing that we have in ControlUp 7.2. Actually, what it lets you do here is just double-click and investigate whatever's going on. So let's just double-click randomly on a row here, and what it actually will show us is what VMs are running on that particular host and their performance. And of course, the context of this is not just to see, okay, what's going on, but the issues are the most important. So you want to look for what's actually going on and what gives you trouble in the environment. So in case something looks to you a little bit elevated, in case some of the activity looks a little bit irregular to you, you want to investigate it. You want to drill down and you want to double click and you want to go into that particular area. And yes, there's a question here. I see. Yes.
Connection done through the hypervisor only, or via some kind of agent on the VM?
So far what you're seeing, this is just API. This is just API via the hypervisor. No agents needed for this part. But in a second, when we want to drill down into whatever's going on inside the guest VMs, that's where the agents become involved. And this is, of course, a very good question. And what do you get for a very good question? An incentive. That's right.
The right thing.
So, yes?
If somebody is asking a question, can you repeat the question? Because
oh, that's right, that's right. So the question basically was, do you need an agent for this? And the answer you just heard, and we'll get to that in 1 second. So, let me just simulate something here. So, when we're looking at a grid of, so let's switch to a different view. This is the view of the computer. So by computers, we actually mean VMs, physical machines. So guest, not the host hypervisor, but the guest VMs. But it can also mean physical PCs. Weird, but some customers actually use this to monitor physical PCs, and it works great. So let's say that we're looking at a list of computers like that, and you don't really need to see the details, right? When we see some dashboard like that, our intuitive reaction is to look at the different colors and to try to spot what is strange here, what is irregular. So seeing just a red dot over there, even though you might not see what's even the problem there, you know that red signifies some sort of irregularity, some sort of problem, some sort of something that you want to drill down into. So what we introduced in this version of ControlUp is a little bit of an assistant to you to drill down into issues, and we call it Virtual Expert. Right, so hopefully you guys as experts will like your new virtual friend. So what we allow here is to basically double click, but when you double click on a row now, we're also looking at the column that you're double clicking on and trying to guess what is it that you're worried about at this point. So if we're looking at this particular red cell here, this is the disk queue cell, right? So when you're double clicking on that, you're probably wondering what is causing this high disk queue. So what we introduced here is an option, basically an automatic mechanism, that when you drill down into that particular cell, will try to guess what is it you're after in terms of investigation. In this case, what is the process that is consuming all of that is causing this high disk queue, and we're automatically sorting this by the relevant column. So another example, let's see, maybe I'm having a high CPU stress on some of the machines, right? So, or high memory, okay? Just let's just pick randomly, okay? So let's just say high memory utilization. And I double click on that, and my virtual expert basically sort of guesses, okay, maybe you're investigating high memory utilization. This is the user with the most memory on that, we're consuming the most memory on that machine. So we're trying to guess what is it you're after and trying to switch you to the most relevant view, which is the user that's consuming the most. So basically it's achieved by just looking not only on the row that you're clicking on, but also on the column. So if you're looking at, and this actually came from the fact that we have so many different metrics and so many different columns bringing all sorts of information, and we want to make this simpler. So by making this simpler, what we did here is just we took this column that you're clicking on, and we're trying to kick aside all the things that are not relevant and only show you what's really relevant for that particular investigation. So that could be, for example, if you're investigating, I don't know, average high logon duration on a server, double-clicking on average high logon duration will show you the users with the slowest logon. Okay, makes sense? And before you had to play with the columns and adjust them to see only the relevant stuff. Now we're just helping you with that. And that helps us lazy system people, right? Because we don't like to customize the views, we just want the answers fast, right? So this is our new virtual expert feature, which we're really proud of. Any questions so far? Yes or no?
I got a question.
No, still nothing for Zen Mobile, I'm sorry.
No. On computers tab, you don't have a link to the host. I mean, on the host, we can see a lot of things, but no cloud. The question is, can we install the agent on VM running in the cloud?
Can you install the agents on VMs running in the cloud? This is a very good question, and of course, you can. Any agent that, any guest VM that you're looking at, right? ControlUp doesn't really care if it's running in the cloud or on-prem, okay?
You're in front.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure.
We'll show it.
Thank you. So just a typical scenario, okay? You might be running some VMs on-prem and some VMs in the cloud. The deployment of the agents may be a little bit different, the way you send them to the cloud, but in the end of the day, to us, a computer is a computer. If it's an OS, we can deploy an agent to. We don't care if it's on a cloud or on-prem.
And in this fact, we need to focus on the computers tab and not the host, because we will not have any hosts for the cloud.
That's right. That's right. For the cloud options, and just what Anu is pointing out here is that when you're dealing with cloud machines, and let me just show an example of that, right? So we have a small AWS environment monitored here, just a really small one here, and when I'm focusing on that, I may be seeing wait a second. Sorry about that. Need to reconnect to those. So there's just a couple of machines, but I'm seeing those instances, I'm seeing those VMs, but I'm not seeing the underlying host, of course.
Yeah.
Right?
So how can we know that those VMs are running in the cloud?
So it's basically up to you to organize them in, so that's what you do. We organize them in folders, okay? That's what you normally do. But there are also specific columns that are only relevant
for the host.
Not for the host, but for the type of machine, type of hypervisor, right? So you do get that. All right. So
But
yes.
is the agent aware that he's in the cloud? Or he's doesn't matter?
Philosophical question.
No. Okay, but it's a different. It's not a question, it's really different.
The agent itself, no, the answer is that from the agent's perspective, whatever is monitored inside the OS, nothing is different, right?
Yeah.
It's just enumerating sessions and performance counters and processes. So it's just, thank you, Sam. It's replacing Watanabe. So, all right. So basically, this is this part of ControlUp, the real-time visibility. This has been around since 2011. It has been improved a lot, mainly by adding more and more columns, more and more information. But the basic functionality is still here. And what people like about this is the ability is two things. One, you basically saw, so seeing all those performance counters and the updates coming in real time, which is nice because if something happens now, you should get within 2 or 3 seconds, you should get an update in the console, and it's refreshing. And there are downsides to this being a Windows application and not a web application, but an upside to this is that it's refreshing really nicely and everything is flowing in terms of information. So just one simple example of that. Those are all the processes, okay? This is a list of all the processes running in my entire environment, okay? So this is about like 70, 80 machines, not too big. So about 5,000 processes in this case. And if I want to search for a specific process, search for a specific workload that's running, all I need to do is just type the process name, right? So SQL Server, just type SQL Server, and there you go. It just filters out instantly, and you can do whatever you want with this. You can look at the resource consumption, you can kill the process, you can go to the machine, you can go to the session. So all of this basically is meant to allow you full visibility into what's happening in your entire environment across your different machines, on-prem and in the cloud. So this is one major part of ControlUp. But as the name of ControlUp implies, this is not only about seeing stuff. ControlUp is also about acting upon it, right? So when we spot an issue and we want to do something, want to sort of perform an action to fix the problem, what is the most common action that comes to mind?
Kill them.
Killing processes, right? Everybody loves killing processes. That's the most. No, that's a fact. The most popular action among ControlUp users is actually killing processes, but it's changing rapidly. So yeah, here's Yoni making use of our own functionality of chat. So there's a yes and a yes option. That's amazing. So, all right. So basically, what I mean by taking action, let's take something from the end user computing world, right? So when you're looking at all those different user sessions, and you want to take, for example, here's my session here. I'm guessing, this is one of my sessions that I'm running, and there is some irregular I/O activity in here. Of course, I can always double-click in that, and the virtual expert will take me to the actual process doing it. But I can also do something else. I can also perform a simple get session screenshot action and just take a quick snapshot of what's happening inside. By snapshot, I mean a picture, right? Yeah. So a quick picture of whatever's happening inside the session. And this is, I'm always showing this, all of you have seen this, except for the newcomers, but this is a really, sorry?
Is this GDPR compliant?
Well, like hell it is. So it's so no, but the question is this GDPR compliant? This is a good question. Great is the one I have a great answer for. So
Yeah. You just seeing the thing.
So another related question here is that does the user know that we're taking this screenshot? And the answer is we actually are taking this very seriously. So there is a policy that you can set that either restricts this ability to only doing this with user permission or restricts it totally. So just like the session shadowing feature in Citrix, sort of, right? So you can restrict it for the entire environment. You can cripple it out totally, that you can totally not use it, or you can, of course, like any other control functionality, you can be really, really precise and specify the specific roles, Active Directory groups that are allowed to do this. In any case, you can make this so that the user will always get a notification, and you can also make it that the user should approve. Okay? Sorry?
Can you audit this?
Yeah, we're improving the auditing mechanism. The engine is already there. We're starting to build upon it. So the auditing exists. It's getting better and better with time. If we're talking vision now, right? If we're talking for future versions, so what we're looking to have is a full audit, not only of the fact that you performed this, but maybe even of the content itself, right? So being able to store this historically will be awesome, I think. Of course, when it is legitimate and when it's good for actually troubleshooting issues. So as we know, sometimes the border between what's legitimate and what's not legitimate is somewhat shady, but we're trying to support all the different regulations and scenarios possible. So thank you guys for the question. Any more questions so far? A little bit more on ControlUp actions. So the actions that we're able to perform, what you've seen so far is a get session screenshot action, which is not really, it doesn't do anything except for taking the picture, but it can be, the actions can be a lot more active. So let's just zoom in a little bit. This is just an action gallery for what we have for sessions. So, for example, you can always do log off the session, and you can do shadow session or disconnect or send a message or start chatting with the user. And you can do cool stuff like, for example, kill the group policy inside the session. So again, end user computing, this is the type of challenges that you really need. Sometimes group policies restricting stuff, you need to kill it. We have an action that kills it inside the user session without logging them off. And then you can reapply it onto the same session without the user even feeling. And that allows you to run all sorts of tools that you need as an admin inside the user context. Other stuff that I really like about ControlUp and end user computing scenarios is that you can interact with the user session in ways that are not normally possible. For example, you can launch processes inside the user session. If you want to run a specific application or a script in the user context, right, on behalf of the user, as the user, with the same environment variables and the same everything, you can inject the process right from here, right? So it's very good for troubleshooting sometimes. And the most awesome part about ControlUp's actions functionality, I guess, is this thing here that's called script-based actions. And this is actually a platform, and what it allows you to do is take any PowerShell script, any VB script or CMD as well, but PowerShell is by far the most popular, and just plug it into ControlUp, and it becomes a full-blown management action in the sense that you can select any number of targets, say user sessions, and run any type of script inside those sessions, get the results back, and if they return the same results, all you will see is, here's one result. Okay, if they return different results, you will see for those sessions, this is the result, for those sessions, this is the result. Okay, so maybe let's look at a small example here. Let's look at log-on duration, okay? And by the way, this is something that we introduced also in recent versions. We introduced the concept of scores, so if you want to see what is the user experience score, or what is the resource utilization score for a machine or for a user, this is just a simple way of knowing that stuff is bad for that particular user, right? So a red icon in the UX score means that probably this user is not very happy with whatever's going on. And in this case, the reason why they're probably not that happy is that the logon duration here is over 2 minutes. So that doesn't look very promising in terms of the user experience. But let's see what the script-based actions can be helpful with here. So we just go to script-based actions. And what we want to do is analyze logon duration, right? So this is the one I was looking for. So the analyze GPO extensions, I just ran a script inside that user session that analyzed how long did the different group policy extensions took, right? And this is something I could run in any number of user sessions, but in this case, just for this one thing. So basically in this case, the script ran inside the user session context, got me back the results, and I can see the different group policy objects affecting the group policy extensions. And in this case, some of them have telling names, but basically I can see whatever is taking, which group policy extensions are taking the most in terms of the logon duration, and that's what's affecting this slow logon in this case. So the total duration here of all the group policy loading is 1.5 minutes, which is horrible in terms of the user experience. And this is something that we've been taking really seriously along the past months, and in a couple of years we've been doing a lot around logon duration. You've probably heard about the different research that we performed on logon duration. We basically published around an analysis of about 250 million logons in the world, and we published the results of what the logon duration looks like, and the results are actually pretty sad in terms of the averages. You know, you would expect that the world average of logon duration would be very fast. You would say 5 to 10 seconds. No, it's actually north of 20 seconds, and so that's a bad thing for the users, but maybe a good thing for us experts because we have a lot of material to work with. So actually, in continuance of this effort, tomorrow we're going to do it. Tomorrow in the afternoon, we're going to show some new results here. So we have new results on application load time, which is something that we've been monitoring for about a year now. And there's also literally hundreds of millions of events we've analyzed across the world, and we have some very interesting results on slow loading applications. So be sure to visit the session that I'm doing tomorrow afternoon. And the only one who's really objecting to this is Benny, who's doing the session at the same time. So, but Benny's session will be available as a recorded one, and. No, you can make them also. So we're actually going to. This is going to be the first time we're going to show the results on application load time, and I can tell you there's some interesting stuff going on there, but in various sessions as well. So this has been a short tour through ControlUp real time. I want to mention some things about ControlUp Insights, which is our historical reporting and analytics platform. But before that, any questions so far on what I've been talking here? Yes?
Some cells have got a little blue bar in them. What's the little blue bar?
Yeah, very good question. So, of course. So the blue bar on the cells that are over here is basically meant to sort of guide you to investigate, to sort of see you noticed it and you asked about it. So this is sort of what happens in the head of whoever's seeing the console for the first time. If you see something that's special about those cells, you tend to want to click it and want to look at it, right? So when you click at it, you get a small summary of what's going on here. So the threshold, this cell here is red because it crossed the threshold. And the threshold was 58 seconds, just because we wanted it to be so. And the virtual expert actually recommends you to go to the Sessions UX score preset, which is a different view, which shows you a little bit more of the details of whatever the virtual expert deemed worthy of investigating here in this case, right? So this blue bar is sort of an extension of the virtual expert functionality, and it lets you go and sort of elaborate for that particular session what might be affecting the user experience. So in this case, latency, bandwidth, log-on duration, and all those different things, right? So the idea was to sort of let you focus on the important columns. And the reason was that we had so many performance metrics and so many columns that you just got lost in them. And the idea was to focus you on the more important ones. So thanks for the question. Yes, Tom?
Can you customize what makes up the UX score?
Yes. So the UX score. Actually, no, sorry. It is a good question. There's a lot of customization going on around ControlUp. There's a lot of things that you could customize. I think usually the statistics on how many people actually customize settings are about 5%. So if 5% of the people actually customize the settings, then this is a popular customization. So what we're trying to do for the most part is trying to make the 95% make sense, and then the 5% who actually want to go and customize the things are the geeky people like Tom who like to tweak the settings, and we totally respect that. More questions for now?
Eugene?
Yes?
You have multiple zones. Do you have a board matrix? What all I need to open if I have multiple zones and they're all protected by firewalls? And what about if I have a hardened endpoint?
This is a good question. It's also a hard question, so maybe 2 bottles each. So the thing is that ControlUp was made to work out of the box as fast as possible in the simplest environments, right, where no firewalls and everything connects fast, and that's what we really love when we're setting up stuff, right? But of course, in the more restricted scenario, when you have firewalls between the different components, it can become a little bit more involved. I can tell you that there's almost no environment which we haven't seen in terms of the complexity of firewalls and everything. Sometimes there's a lot of customizations to the firewall rules and to the access list that you need to make to open the needed ports, but we have more and more experience in that. So the more environments that we see, the more complexity we see, and the more of the different solutions we come up with. Just a simple example, managed service providers are the most challenging example, I guess, because they have multi-tenancy, have different customers looking at different things. So for some of them, I say right from the start, this is not going to be a 5-minute installation. This is going to be maybe a few days of project of setting stuff up. But for 95% of the customers, the scenario is so simple that ControlUp gets up and running in under 5 minutes. Okay, so of course we try to focus on those scenarios, but for the more complex ones, we also have the solutions, and more as we progress. So again, not a simple answer for not a simple question. So yes.
So my question is kind of like Tom's, that you've got a lot of counters up here, and I'm interested in how you determine what these thresholds are for your color changes, and what I consider a problem may not be what you consider a problem.
Fair enough.
I want to be able to change or customize what these thresholds are, because maybe I don't want to see red all over my screen. I just want to hone in on a particular thing that I'm looking at, and change those thresholds to be higher, so I only see what I need to see.
So fair enough. Great question. Since you're standing in the middle, I think everybody gets a shot now. But Matan, please distribute as you see fit. So a very good question. So what we're trying, and actually I have a small story about this. So I asked someone at a customer site, I was thinking that this guy should use ControlUp a lot, but it turns out that he doesn't. And I asked him why. So he said, I don't like it because everything is red all the time. Ridiculous it may sound, sometimes we don't like monitoring products that just scream at us red and broken all the time, right? So we're actually thinking all sorts of ways to tackle this, because people don't like to see when everything is red, then maybe nothing is red, right? So we're getting better and better at this. So the simplest bottom line answer is there is a way to customize everything, right? Every possible threshold you can set, how much time does it need to be above this value in order to become red. So you can set your own thresholds for everything. But what we're trying to do as ControlUp, and this leads me to my next part, and which is going to be the last one for this. So since we are taking this data and analyzing it globally for all of our customers, what we're trying to do is come up with smart thresholds, right? So we're trying to come up with thresholds that make sense for, I wouldn't say the entire world, but the vast majority, right? So for example, when we're showing that the logon duration is red, we're basing this on the averages that we're seeing in the world and on the thresholds that are derived from actual community data. And this is our way of sort of giving back value from what we gather from the community.
Based on historical data that you're taking over time, and you keep changing, the more data you get, the better you get.
It's getting more and more like what you're saying, right? But from the basics, right? Even when it's not adjusting that much, because the reality is that it doesn't change that much, right? So, but all the thresholds that we see here are based on the data that we gather from the community. That's what's happening. So let me just skip right through to this next bit. So what I want to show here is that we're not only showing, we have 5 minutes left, so what I want to show here is that we're not only showing what's happening in our environment right now, but we're also showing historical data. So in this context, I'd like to introduce to whoever hasn't seen it before, this is ControlUp Insights, which is an analytics and historical reporting platform based on all the data that's gathered by ControlUp. So everything you saw in the previous screens is basically exists here, but historically. So you can always go back in time and see what's happening in your environment yesterday, last week, today at 3 p.m. This is getting, by the way, the time difference between now and when it arrives in ControlUp Insights is getting shorter and shorter, so we're getting faster and faster in getting data here. Now it's between half an hour and a bit over an hour, so it's not real time, but it is getting better and better, and we're always improving that. The idea here is to sort of give you the bottom lines, the things that really should interest you as an admin in the environment. So sort of summarize what happened yesterday, which computers had the longest I/O peaks, the CPU peaks, which were the users with the slowest logons, for example. And everything here is actionable, and you can click and go and drill down into whatever's happening in this particular widget. So for example, for the slowest logons, if you click on it, what will happen is you will get the full report of whatever's happening with those users, and you will see which actual users. Let's just switch to here. And in the same time, I want to also point out two new things that you probably haven't seen before, and what's happening in ControlUp Insights. So let me just maybe zoom in like this a little bit. We have this report called sizing recommendations. So probably seen similar stuff like that. But what we're trying to do here is sort of recommend you, or should I say, show you under the covers what is the sizing of your different machines and how does it correspond to the usage, right? So sort of trying to show you which computers have over-provisioned CPUs, over-provisioned RAMs, over-provisioned resources. So basically, the idea here is to focus on over-provisioning and seeing the waste of resources, or maybe how you can utilize them better. So this is one of the new things that we're doing. Another thing is environment assessment. It will take a bit to load. So this is the slowest logons in my environment, which I can always investigate. Let's take a question. Right?
Recommendations. You come up with something for disk capacity as well.
Disk capacity.
Yeah.
Yes.
You only have large CPU and memory, but the disk capacity for each VM as well.
Yes.
They attach disks, whatever they have.
Yes. So the insights bit, so the historical reporting bit, does not have all the disk usage information yet, where it's in the queue, and we'll get more of it in here. I do have some very good news about the real-time product for this. We have actually introduced a thing called advanced triggers, which means that you can now get alerts on any cell, right? So even a specific cell that changes with low disk capacity and something is running low, you can set it and you can bypass the stress level mechanism, which is a little bit involved. You can set a direct alert to get even a mobile push notification if disk capacity is running low, and even on specific VM or data store from the hypervisor level. Okay, it doesn't really matter. So that's a great question, Matan. Yes, last question from Jim here.
So,
Please.
say if you have all the data, one of the things I was looking to see from you guys, maybe it's just a blog, is what are the hardest problems to solve? So you can record when you've got problems in a customer environment, and you will also notice when those problems go away. Yeah? And so from that, you can then see which problems stick around for the longest in people's environments. So by that, they will be the hardest problems to solve. And as admins, I would love to know which of the things I absolutely have to get right up front, because the people can't solve them later. They stick around for so long in my environment.
Right. So your question in itself is not an easy problem. So, I guess when you're, but it's definitely the holy grail of what we want to achieve with ControlUp. So having all the, and this my time is running out and is really up. So we'll obviously discuss this at length as always. But let me just say that with all the data that we're getting, it's becoming very, very, it's called like target confusion, right? We have so much interesting stuff to look at, but it's definitely where we want to be. We want to see what's really worrying our customers, what are the problems that they're looking at, when are they solving them, and what do they do to solve those problems. And the good news are that we're getting all this information. So we're getting more and more information, we just need to make sense of it, which is the big data, the eternal big data challenge, right? So absolutely next to last thing that I want to show is the environment assessment. Just simple glance at it, right? This is analyzing the last month of activity and delivering you all sorts of information that you wouldn't find readily available. Let's just say it like that, right? So just a simple summary of the environment. Which OSs do you have? Which hosts do you have? The resource usage trends for your user sessions. So this is something that the customers have been asking for a long time. And the basic idea here is that you put it in the customer environment, you let it just sit there for a few weeks, and then you come back and you get this nicely summarized assessment report, which generates a lot of basically follow-up, right? Generates a lot of hours that you can spend investigating all those different things. So partners and consultants obviously love this. So this is the environment assessment. Last thing that I want to mention, this is by the way, this is what ControlUp looks like right now. And I still remember the days when there was just 4 or 5 of us making the product, and this is what we look right now. And if you come to our offices, you'll be able to see one of the really nicest offices I ever saw. So we're really proud of the growth, and the growth is largely due to people like you. So spreading the word about ControlUp, trying it out, putting it in customer sites and solving real problems. This is what takes us to a place where in the State of the Union Login VSI report, the 2018 version, so ControlUp is basically only behind the built-in solutions. We're very, very proud of that, and I think the fact that we've been doing this, I think in 2013 when they first showed ControlUp at E2ABC, barely anyone knew it, and here we are. So we've done this. So thank you very much, and I would like to invite you again to the session tomorrow at 2:15, the community session on slow loading applications. Very nice data, very nice geek fun that we want to do. And the ControlUp is free forever for independent consultants and for small labs, so talk to me if you're not sure how to set this up. Last and totally last thing is that we have a present for E2EVC grandfathers. So grandfathers, I know one of the things we ask grandfathers to do, grandfathers are supposed to be respected and they're supposed to be senior, but what we ask them to do all the time is stand up, right? But still, I'm going to ask the grandfathers to stand up, and we have a special treat for you guys from ControlUp.